Meet the press anchor, Chuck Todd, joining us now. Chuck, first, good to see you. Wanting to get your take on the latest developments in the Whitmer kidnapping plot trial. Not a single guilty verdict. What do you make of it all?
Well, look, I think it really is a reflection of the Justice Department's case and on the FBI's decision. You know how these investigations work, right? We've seen this entrapment defense not work in the past when you've had terrorism plots broken up, and sometimes there'll be somebody who has ambition. The FBI will start to realize that this person is contemplating this, and then they see how far they're willing to go. It seemed like a similar tactic was used here. I do think this will start to raise questions, number one, about those tactics. Are these effective? They may be effective at rooting out potential terrorism, like it did here, but they've got to figure out how to use these tactics so that they're prosecutable. And I think that this is obviously where they run into. So how they went about, you know, the fact is a jury thought that some of these guys were entrapped by the FBI. That tells you that the FBI and Justice need to rethink how they use this tactic. It's obviously still an effective tactic, but in this case, they did something here that was enough to convince a jury that it was over the line here. I think you're going to see a big review of that tactic.
Now, given all of the extremism we are seeing around the nation, what does the jury's decision signal to politicians? What message do you think the acquittal and the deadlock send to people who peddle all of this divisive rhetoric?
Look, I'm a little concerned that the unintended consequence is going to be that, hey, this is only going to perhaps give comfort to some extremists that maybe they can keep walking that line of threat there, and they can go right up a little bit closer to you know, maybe being menacing when it comes to our politics. That's the concern I have, is that this unintentionally gives a green light to a sort of new level of comfort on political violence. Look, that's the concern I have as a member of the media who certainly gets his share of threats. And I know a lot of elected officials, left and right, who are getting more and more threats on a daily basis. I know that's going to be in the back of the mind of those. So I think this is one of those verdicts that could have some unintended consequences to it.
Now, where do you believe Governor Whitmer goes from here, and how do prosecutors and investigators move forward?
Well, I mean, look, I think that I go back to on the prosecution front, I think they need to ask themselves, you know, if you're going to use these tactics, when you sort of get a tip that there is folks ready to potentially commit terrorism, how you go about investigating that, obviously, those tactics need to be relooked at, because you got to make sure you don't suddenly get to a point where you can't prosecute obvious criminals. I think for Governor Whitmer, you know, look, she's the governor. She's got to look forward, not backward here. She's got to have, I'm sure she might have her own security concerns. I'm sure her own security detail is probably going to be certainly a little more heightened alert, because who knows what the unintended consequence of this acquittal is, frankly, on her personal safety. But I think for her politically, you know, it's got to be, she's got to be looking forward, and she's got to be thinking about things like cost of living issues and things like that we know are on the front of most voters' minds.
And finally, sir, you have the Ukrainian foreign minister on Meet the Press Sunday. What can we expect to hear?
Well, I want to know whether there is any more room to negotiate with the Russians. You know, I've talked with some U.S. officials who have indicated, you know, there's no off-ramp anymore for Putin. He's committing blatant war crimes. He's targeting civilians. There's no sitting down and negotiating with this man. I'm curious if that's where the Ukrainians are now as well.
We look forward to your reporting, Chuck. Good to see you. Thanks so much for your time. You be well.
Thanks, Donovan.